Now we're going to work through the circulatory system. The circulatory system has three main functions: transport, temperature regulation, and protection. So let's talk about each of these and how the circulatory system helps us with each. The circulatory system transports many different substances around our bodies. It carries oxygen from our lungs to all the other tissues in the body. It carries nutrients from the digestive system to our cells so they can have the energy they need. It also carries hormones which help regulate our body systems, maintain homeostasis, or respond to stimuli. It carries immune cells to help protect us from pathogens. And finally, it collects wastes and transports them to the excretory system so they can be eliminated. In vertebrates, the circulatory system is important for temperature regulation. We've already talked a little bit about how when we are cold, blood becomes more concentrated in the center of the body, away from the extremities and skin, where we can lose a lot of heat. When we're too warm, blood rushes to the skin and extremities to dissipate heat and help cool us off. And finally, by carrying immune cells and chemicals around the body, like white blood cells and blood clotting chemicals, the circulatory system is crucial for protecting us from pathogens and damage to our tissues. Pause the video, open up participation assignment 10, and answer this question. Single-celled organisms can easily take in nutrients and oxygen and get rid of wastes by diffusion. But diffusion is a very slow and inefficient process. As organisms became multicellular and larger, diffusion was no longer efficient enough to keep all the cells in the body nourished and functioning well. So the circulatory system evolved as a faster way to get the cells everything they need. Not all circulatory systems look like ours. Some small animals have open circulatory systems, meaning their circulatory fluid isn't contained in vessels, but instead just sloshes around the body, bathing the organs. This type of system is still relying primarily on diffusion, but because these animals are small, it still works well for them. However, this reliance on diffusion limits the size of animals with open circulatory systems. In an animal like an insect, which has an open circulatory system, the fluid that carries nutrients, waste, oxygen, and hormones is known as hemolymph instead of blood. These animals usually have a simple pump similar to a heart that pushes the hemolymph from one end of the body to the other. But then the hemolymph leaves the vessel and bathes the organs, delivering nutrients, oxygen, and hormones to the tissues by diffusion and picking up wastes. Now answer this fill-in-the-blank question. Check your spelling. We have a closed circulatory system, so everything that needs to be transported around the body travels through blood vessels that carry those substances directly to the cells in our tissues. Closed circulatory systems have a muscular heart that pumps the blood through these vessels. The blood remains contained in blood vessels and is kept separate from the interstitial fluid, which is the fluid that bathes our organs. In vertebrates, the heart has two different types of chambers. First, blood enters the atrium, which is a collecting chamber. It is then pumped into the ventricle, which pumps it to the lungs or to the rest of the body. But circulatory systems look different in different vertebrates. Fish have a fairly simple circulatory system compared to ours. Their heart only has two chambers, one atrium and one ventricle. There is only one circuit of flow. Blood leaving the heart is pumped to the gills, where it picks up oxygen and then passes on to deliver that oxygen to tissues around the body. Eventually, it makes its way back to the heart, so it can be pumped to the gills again. So there's only one circuit in this system. Blood is only being pumped once in its journey around the body. Mammals and birds have a more complex system with two circuits. Blood is passing through the heart twice as it travels from lungs, around the body, and back to the lungs. Mammals and birds have a four-chambered heart, 2 atria and 2 ventricles. Each side of the heart pumps blood into one of the two circuits. As deoxygenated blood leaves the tissues and passes through the right side of the heart, it enters the pulmonary circuit, where it is pumped to the lungs to pick up oxygen. The word pulmonary means related to the lungs. In fish, once blood picked up oxygen from the lungs, it carried it directly to the tissues. But in mammals and birds, it instead goes back to the heart to be pumped again and get an extra boost. Now it is in the systemic circuit, which carries oxygen to the tissues or to the whole system. This time it passes through the left side of the heart. This two-circuit circulatory system creates more power to move blood efficiently around a large body. Having a four-chambered heart with an atrium and ventricle on one side and an atrium and ventricle on the other side has some advantages. It keeps the oxygenated blood from mixing with the deoxygenated blood. Having two circuits and pumping the blood twice helps create more force to move that blood efficiently around a large body. Amphibians and reptiles have some similarities to mammals and birds, but their circulatory system is a little less efficient. They also have two separate circuits, so blood is getting pumped twice as it travels around the body. However, they don't have two separate ventricles. They have a three-chambered heart, where deoxygenated blood from the pulmonary circuit and oxygenated blood from the systemic circuit both pass through the same ventricle. So there is some mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood here. The oxygenated blood loses a little bit of its oxygen to the deoxygenated blood as they mix in the ventricle. Before you go on to the next video, answer these two questions.